Watching the wheel turn says we are live, and I will start the recording as well, just so that we have that going. Hopefully this works. There we go. And hopefully that ends everything I need to do.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority Board for September the 28th, 2021. It's just past 9:30, so I think we've got just about everybody here. We're just waiting for, I think, one last board member. So just before we get into the agenda, a few reminders. Chris Harrington is our host, so if you have any issues, speak up and try to contact Chris through the chat feature, and we'll try to keep everybody in the meeting. Please mute your microphone if you're not speaking, and keep your participant and chat windows open. The raise hand feature. If you have an older version like me of Zoom, you will find the raise hand feature still under participants. If you have a newer version, you will find it under reactions. So you may have to look around a bit for the raised hand feature. As a last resort, if you can't do the raised hand feature, then just speak up, and if you have a comment or question, and we'll try not to miss anyone. And again, a reminder that today's meeting is being recorded and live streamed on our YouTube channel as part of our requirement to allow public viewing of the proceedings. Teresa Hollingsworth will be filling in today. Michelle is ill today, so I'll try to remember to go to Teresa when I need to, and she'll be helping get through the meeting today. So at this time, I'd like to give the First Nation territorial greeting. We will begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Lunapiaq peoples, who have long-standing relationships to the land, water, and region of southwestern Ontario. The local First Nation communities of this area include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, Munsee Delaware Nation, and Delaware Nation at Moraviantown. In the region, there are 11 First Nation communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island. We do have regrets today from Anna Hopkins and Sandy Levin. And with that, I'm going to ask Teresa to do the roll call, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'll start with Marie Bloch.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Alan Dale.
Present.
Tony Jackson.
Yes.
Margaret Lupton. I know Margaret's here.
All right, I'm here.
There we go.
Thanks. Hugh McDermott.
Present.
Paul Mitchell.
Present.
Anna Marie Murray.
Yes, I'm here.
Brian Petrie.
Present.
Jim Ruffle.
Here.
Joe Salter.
Here.
Mark Schadenberg.
Present.
Alex Westman.
I'm here.
I'm hoping that was just Nancy Manning we just heard. Come on.
It was. I just let her in. I'm trying to see if she.
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Morning, everyone. Thank you.
Sorry.
Looks like we have 13 board members present. That's great. First item we have is approval of the agenda. Can I get Paul to move that and Anna Marie to second it, that the board of directors approve the agenda as posted?
So moved.
So seconded.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at all on the motion to approve the agenda? I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So with that, I'm going to ask for the vote, and I'll ask Teresa to do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Ellen Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
All right, that's carried. Thank you. Next item we have is the declaration of conflicts of interest. Do any of the board members have any declaration to make this morning? I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So third item on the agenda are the minutes from the previous meeting. That was back on August the 24th, 2021. Can I get Brian to move that and Jim to second it?
So moved. So seconded.
Thank you. Any comments or questions at all on the minutes from the last board meeting? I'm not seeing or hearing anything, so if there's no comments or questions on the motion, we'll call for the vote, and I'll have Teresa do the roll, please.
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Ellen Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
All right, that's carried. Thank you. I don't believe there's any business arising from the minutes. Item number 5 is delegations. We have no delegations for today's meeting. Item 6, we have business for approval. And item 6.1 is the only one there. It's an important one though. 2022 budget concepts. We'll get started on our budget process. We've got a long ways to go till we get to February, but we need to get started and start to give staff some direction on where we want to go or where we think we want to go. So this report is giving us some preliminary general concepts that staff will be using to develop the 2022 budget. And in a sense, not a lot's changed since last year. We are still waiting for some direction from the province. Still waiting for these further guidelines to be unrolled. You'll recall that last year we deferred part of the final years of the environmental targets plan. The strategy at that time was to go for a status quo budget, just sort of kind of keep things on an even keel and until we were able to start signing these agreements with municipalities. We wanted to get that process underway and not rock the boat really. So it was a status quo budget. And this year, as I said, not much has changed and we're looking basically to do the same thing again. However, we've pointed out that there is some concerns on the horizon with inflation and with some real rising costs for public entities such as insurance. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tracy and Christine as well for some comments in this report. Tracy?
Sure, Alan, thank you through the chair. Again, just really wanted to focus that, yeah, at this period of time, we're just looking for some further direction to staff as we develop our budget. As Alan mentioned, we've noted in the report some of the areas that we have been keeping an eye on and where we anticipate change, and also some preliminary feedback from our municipalities. And knowing that there is likely to be more change for us to be able to negotiate agreements next year, that'll change. But again, we're really not a lot further ahead than we were last year at this time when we were coming up with the same status quo type budget. Inflation is a big one. There's some indication that it may stabilize and go down, but certainly with the increase we saw in August of 4.1 and high rates throughout the summer, it's really an indicator of where we think things may go. So we've tried to establish what we think is practical at this time. Looking at the April over April being 3.3 for inflation, that's the guidance that we tend to follow. Certainly know we're also undertaking a compensation review for staff. And certainly, as Alan mentioned, those insurance rates. I know Brian was speaking about his municipality even having a hard time getting insurance providers. So knowing that's an issue with municipalities as well as we go out to talk about our budget there. Christine, I'll pass it over to you if you have anything else to add.
Thanks, Tracy. We have requested an advisory estimate from our insurers. Alex has put that question out to them. We did the same last year, but it took a little bit of time for them to put a report together. So with any luck, we'll have some feedback, at least on the insurance increase, because it's a $300,000 program to the Upper Thames, just the insurance. So that could have a significant impact on what the budget is going to look like. Last year, it was over a 20% increase. Some municipalities faced over 30% increases last year. And even in last year's report from the insurer, it indicated that it wasn't going to be a blip. So I think we can expect high rates there. One other thing that didn't make the report, but that does have an effect on the total wage burden, is our health program. We renegotiated our health benefits package. It started this summer. Typically in the first year of the 5-year contract, the rates are lower, and then they tend to rise in the later years. So at least for part of next year, we'll have to figure in a slightly higher amount for that program than we experienced this year. Those are my only comments.
Okay, thank you, Christine. So the report's there for the board. Any comments or questions at all from board members?
Alan, I see Paul Mitchell's hand.
Oh, okay, thank you. Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And excuse me. I agree with the concept that it should be a status quo budget. There's just too many things up in the air as far as changes to funding. As Alan said, even though we've been waiting for months and months, we still don't have clear definition of how this funding is going to work. So I think status quo is the way to go. I hope, Tracy, your optimism about inflation is true. Personally, I think inflation is going to take off, and holding to 3.5% may be an issue. Point number 8, capital projects. It says vehicles in particular need to be replaced, and that may be problematic because of the shortage of vehicles. In Ozora Township last winter, we tendered a pickup truck, and we had one bid from a dealership in Barrie, and all the indications are that the situation as far as vehicles, and especially pickup trucks, has got much worse since then. So I would think that we may be in a situation where if we can even access vehicles, we're going to have to pay an arm and a leg to get them. And if there's any way we can stretch another year out of some of those vehicles, that may be the way to go. Just other than that, I think the overall concept of the budget is good and has my support.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Marie, you're next.
Okay, thank you. And I guess through you, I'm wondering about number 12 on this report, where it says, it mentions the core funding coming out of reserves. I'm a little unclear reading that, if there's an anticipation
that we'll have to rely on reserves again for some of this funding for flooding and other core projects?
Okay, who wants to tackle that? Christine or Tracy or?
I was going to suggest Christine.
Sure. Hi, Marie. Thank you, Ellen. So the flood forecasting and warning program typically, normally, is a program that is underfunded. And so other water programs tend to support it. And where we can levy for other flood programs, we do. But in that particular one, we do tend to run a deficit generally. So reserves do support that program now. We're just suggesting that we can't keep doing that, not long term. And of course, that's a leviable program. So we may be able to address that in future. At this point, it's a little hard to say. Is that clear, Marie?
Yeah, I guess I was just wondering, like, if the expectation is to just rely on that substantially again this year, because I think where I'm going with this is I'm concerned about relying on reserves and then saying, well, we'll have, it can be part of the levy in the future. And then in the future, we're trying to explain why the levy is still is going up. When people think, well, or, you know, municipalities may can think, well, there's less funding of non-core projects, so the levy should be going down. Does that make sense? I'm just,
It does. Okay. We've been working for, in truth, we've been working for a couple of years to try to ensure that we're levying for the operations at the dams as they stand. And I would have to say that we've been able to shift some of our dam and flood control levy to ensure that we've got the dam operations fully levy funded. At the same time, we've been doing a lot of mapping, modeling, new work in the water area. And we've had to have matching funding for some of the federal funding we've had. So that's rather put pressure on the other flood programs, but our dam operations now are fully funded generally every year. We're just beginning there, because of course we could levy an extra 10% for dam and flood control, and we would need it, but that's not possible in any given year. So it's been a shuffling effort in water and information management for a number of years, but we have a much clearer picture of what it does cost. So I think in future, this 200 number appeared a couple of years ago, and we're working towards recognizing that that does still need to be funded, but maybe not in 2022 yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If I can.
Yep, carry on.
Yeah, I'll carry on. The other concern I had was fees, and it's sort of just kind of a concern that about the balance between the levy and the user fees, particularly for the recreation areas, more so than anything to do with planning. And there's kind of a balance that has, and it's just a comment, there's kind of just a balance that has to be kept there between the levy and not making the fees so high that they impact people's ability to use the recreational facilities. So that's just, you're getting the money somewhere, and sometimes the fees, you think, well, it's the people who are using it should pay for it, but sometimes what that does is take it out of the reach of a lot of people, and that would be my concern there. But that's kind of just a comment. I think that was it.
Okay, thanks, Marie. Yeah, you're right. There's always a balancing act between the fees that we charge and having the municipal levy pay for the balance.
But if
Of
I
course, we have a lot of programs now that we can't charge a fee for, a lot of recreation programs that, how are we going to pay for that? So, Tracy.
I just wanted to clarify, thank you, Chair, that when we're dealing with recreation, there is no levy that goes to our recreational programs at our parks.
Yes, sorry, quite right. Yes.
And, as we get more information through the regulation that comes out, we'll be able to clarify even more so what types of things are to deal with our property management of our lands versus what are our park operations and those recreational opportunities.
Right. Okay. That's good. Thank you. Brian. Brian, are you there?
All right, did you call my name? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I did.
I had Brian have a hand up. If Brian.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. I heard Mike, so I
Oh,
was trying to figure out, is there a mic? There's no mic. But anyway, yeah, so I'm in favor of the approach going forward for now and to see where things work out. Of course, we are waiting for answers from the province on how we can proceed in the future. But right now, we are in the same operating structure as we always have been. I think the externalities are really going to be the things that push up the budget this year, the insurance, the added cost of vehicles, that sort of thing. So as long as we can justify that to our ratepayers, municipality, that's all we can do is those are out of our control. I will give you an example. Ingersoll received a lovely present of a 36% insurance increase, which added $90,000 to our policy. And when we tried to shop for insurance, the only person that would give us a quote was the person we already had. Ottawa has a scenario where they could not get insurance. So this may have to be taken up at a larger, I think you'll see a groundswelling of municipalities and organizations such as ours take this up with the province to try to come up with a solution. I know they promised a solution when the current premier was first elected. That has failed to materialize, but hopefully that will happen, because unfortunately we're going to run into a time where that is going to be unaffordable, and it just gets deferred down to the taxpayer no matter how you look at it. But for now, yeah, I'm sure that time we get to the budget, we'll have a clear impression of what inflation is actually going to look like and how that can be incorporated in. So right now I'm fine with receiving this.
okay. Thank you, Brian. I'm not seeing any other hands.
Margaret did have her hand up before, Alan. Sorry, so I'm not sure if
okay.
she still had a question or not.
Okay, go ahead, Margaret.
Well, it's not a question so much as it's a comment. I keep thinking about what effect all of these changes and that will have on staff. Like, is the ultimate goal to have fewer projects and so we need a smaller staff, or are we going to need more staff to help groups trying to raise money for some of the projects? And I worry that if we do less or fewer projects, are we going to become less of a player in this particular line of work, you might say, or what we stand for and what we're trying to accomplish? Or will this going out to the public increase the interest that they have and maybe increase private funding? I don't know. And I know nobody has answers, but these are things that I think about at times, the end result of all of this. What is it going to be? Just a comment.
Right. Well, we certainly been understaffed the last number of months and have been slow to fill vacancies. But Tracy, do you want to comment at all on that?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Through you to Councillor Lupton. Certainly, we are interested to know what these regulations are going to say. My gut feeling when we read through what's mandatory and what's non-mandatory, so much of what we're currently doing falls under those mandatory categories. We need refinement on what is considered non-mandatory. And those non-mandatory programs aren't any less important in our watershed. I know some municipalities may consider that they are, the optional programs and services, but when you look at the programs and services that we're delivering to our municipalities, we're delivering them because there's a desire, a want, and a partnership there to continue. So what I really think that these requirements from the province will be better into allowing these agreements to move forward so that both parties have it in writing that these are the things that we benefit from as a whole. I always look to climate change as one of these hot topics these days, but how much of our programming and services that we're providing complement those same objectives through our municipalities, either through their strategic plan objectives or even through those municipalities that have declared climate emergencies. Those projects and programs that we're offering on the ground check the boxes for allowing our municipalities to have that completed in their watersheds and in their municipalities. So again, I really think it's more about the documentation side. And if anything, we may find in some program areas, if other municipalities maybe hadn't known about the programs or hadn't really made the connection between climate change, there may be even a further desire to have more of those programs in their areas and in their municipalities. So I tend to be optimistic, yes, but again, I hear the feedback that we're getting from our municipalities about those opportunities that we're able to provide for them.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Joe, you're next.
I'll approve the recommendation.
Just trying to look here. Did we already get a mover and a seconder?
No.
All righty. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. So if Joe was willing to move it, Mark, are you willing to second the motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. So we've had some good discussion, and as I say, we got a long ways to go in this process. And I'm sure hopefully we'll get some answers as we go along from the province, and we'll be able to put the pieces together. So if there's no other questions at this point, I'm going to call for the vote. Teresa, if you could do the roll, please.
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you, folks. Next on the agenda is business for information. Item 7.1, that is our regular Section 28 status report on administration enforcement. Can I get Alex to move that and Marie to second it, please?
So moved.
And seconded.
Okay, thank you. So does anyone have any questions at all on the Section 28 status report? Continuing to have lots of activity in the watershed, but I'm not seeing or hearing anything. So if there's no questions or comments,
Yes,
I'll call. Oh,
Alan, can I say something?
oh yes, Jenna, go ahead.
Yeah, we just noticed this morning an error. The attachment to the report is the June, July, so it's from our August meeting. So I did pass along to Chris the September report, and we'll send that out to the board after the fact, but Chris has put the September report up there now. And I apologize for that error.
Okay, well, thanks. I did not catch that, so that's good. So we'll have those there. Certainly, board members, encourage you to look over this later on as well. I don't mean to rush anybody, so if you have any questions or comments later on this, please feel free to contact staff. But yeah, we've got some new ones up there. So does anyone have any questions or comments at this point, though? Okay, if not, I'm going to call for the vote. Teresa, can you do the roll, please?
Marie Blanche,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Ruffle,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
Yes.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Next is 7.2, and that's the Conservation Authorities Act Inventory and Transition Plan. And as we've already mentioned, we're still in transition. We're still waiting. So Tracy, you have any comments you'd like to make on this report at all?
Sure. Through the chair, yes, exactly what he had stated. There's certainly been a bit of a delay in the expectation of when we would receive regulations. It was thought that we would have them by the end of August, beginning of September, and now we're approaching the end of September with still no regulations. So I put forward this plan to kind of take a crack at the first step of the consultation process with our municipalities as well as our adjacent CAs, and that's already beginning. And we've had routine conversations with our adjacent CAs for quite some time now, as we're all awaiting this next step of regulations. But through the transition plan, we've also recognized that if the regulations come out with the same date for transition plans to be submitted to the province by the end of this year, we may have to have a December board meeting as well. So I've added that to the plan. It's not yet been scheduled. Again, I'm a little nervous about running ahead when, you know, I would hope that the province would see if they're only releasing regulations in late September, beginning of October. Again, I'm being hopeful that perhaps there might need to be a change in those timelines that were suggested. So along that same theme, I attached the Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority letter and their approach for moving their transition planning ahead and coming up with agreements with their municipalities. Again, it's kind of to allow for the municipalities to be making the decisions on what their timelines are, and that they will have agreements as a status quo for the next couple of years, and then allow for more time to really work through a more formalized agreement based on their watershed management strategy, which will be developed in the next couple of years. As well, it takes that decision making away from the provinces, allows the municipality and the conservation authority to come up with their own process moving forward, rather than requesting an exemption and then allowing the province to make the time frame again. So it's one approach. We're still having some discussions with other CAs about that approach. Again, I think it'll come out if it's necessary or not, if these timelines change from the province. And this was really partially a way to alleviate the stress of having those timelines, but then also the timelines would coincide with the municipal election cycle. And some of those larger municipalities that have multi-year budgets, it would bring those agreements in alignment to those processes as well. So those were a few of the considerations. Like I said, we'll still keep an eye on that as we receive the regulations when they go out. And it may be something to consider if the timelines haven't changed, but I'm not looking for a motion at this time in that matter. As I said, the GMs throughout Southwestern Ontario have been meeting monthly to discuss our plans and make sure there's some continuity, because we recognize we all share municipalities as CAs. Some municipalities have more conservation authorities than others, but consistency is going to be part of that key. So anyway, I'll leave you with that. You have the report, and if you have any further questions, happy to undertake them.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. So the motion is to receive this report as information. Can I get Tony to move it, please, and Margaret to second it?
Yeah, so moved.
Yes, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll go to comments and questions. And Tony, you're first.
No, I had my hand up to move the motion.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? I'm not seeing any hands here. I'm not hearing anything. So if there's no comments or questions, I'll call for the vote. Teresa, can you do the roll, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
yes,
Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Next item we have is 7.3. And this is a report from our team for inclusion, diversity, and equity. So we're going to receive this information. Can I get Nancy to move this, please, and Hugh to second it?
So moved.
So seconded.
All right, thank you. And Jennifer, and I think we've got Julie available as well, are here. You want to add anything at this point, Jennifer, or just want to take questions?
I don't have anything to add. I'm not sure if Julie has anything. I don't think so. Nope.
No, unless there's questions.
Okay. So any comments or questions at all from board members? Don't see or hear anything, so it's all pretty self-explanatory. I'd like to take the opportunity, though, to thank our staff. We have several staff members that are serving in this committee. Of course, lots of things in the news over the last few years as organizations are trying to come to terms with how they can be more inclusive and how they can recognize diversity. And it's a bit of a challenge and a bit of a minefield, but I really appreciate staff, all their hard work in tackling these issues. This Thursday is the federal holiday that's been put forth. And I know there's some confusion over it because some organizations are taking it as a day off. Some are not. Some are pushing that the provinces have adopted it and they haven't yet. It's all fairly new, but certainly I as I say, applaud staff for their initiative and taking this on and trying to make some improvements going forth in how we all work and live together. So appreciate that. If there's no other comments or questions, I'm going to call for the vote then to receive this report. Teresa, can you do the roll, please?
Marie Blosh,
Yes.
Alan Dale,
Yes.
Tony Jackson,
Yes.
Margaret Lupton,
Yes.
Nancy Manning,
Yes.
Hugh McDermott,
Yes.
Paul Mitchell,
Yes.
Anna Marie Murray,
Yes.
Brian Petrie,
Yes.
Jim Reffel,
Yes.
Joe Salter,
Yes.
Mark Schadenberg,
Yes.
Alex Westman.
yes,
Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Takes us down to item number 8. And that is the FYI. There it is. I'm always intrigued to see the birds, and this time we have an insect there at the top. So a little bit of variety. Good to see. And we've had lots of activity out amongst staff and out in the field over the last several months. But we're already planning for next year. So you can see there's some trees to order and things like that. So still lots of activity taking place and lots of things to get caught up on. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the FYI report? Okay, if not, that takes us down to item number 9. That's other business. And I'll turn it over to Tracy to talk about 9.1, which is a vaccination policy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just as an FYI, really as to give you an interim update, I know many municipalities are coming forward with their vaccination policies as well, and we are working on ours. That we have a COVID team that has been meeting throughout the pandemic as required. Sometimes that's been weekly, and then through the summer when things settled down a little bit, we had consistent policies in place. We didn't feel the need to meet quite as frequently, but certainly we're continuously monitoring our practices here at the authority and make sure everyone is doing things that is it's for their own safety. But right now, with the new announcement and the requirements of having vaccine certification for some places, I just wanted to kind of reaffirm that our programs and services do not fall into those high risk categories that require proof of vaccination. So, but with that, with our vaccine policy, we're using the Middlesex London Health Unit template, and certainly reached out to Grant Inglis as well to offer some legal advice. I know even last week, last Wednesday, lawyers were getting prompted in participating in a webinar to allow them to better understand some of the legal implications for vaccine policies, but also how to implement, because it is medical information. So we do not want to be storing that medical information. Instead, how we can confirm vaccine status of our staff. Also, even in the coming week, Conservation Ontario is providing another webinar on the same topic. So we'll be participating in that. But for now, we continue to follow the advice of our public health units, and we have 3 of those health units in our watershed. So we tend to follow the most restrictive of the 3 measures. And Dr. Chris Mackey has certainly made some recommendations from Middlesex London Health that go maybe a little bit further. Again, there's the City of London as a large population base that tends to have a little bit higher numbers in COVID cases than our other health units. So we're certainly following that advice. As for the Watershed Conservation Center, it continues to be closed to the public. We do offer the facilities to be used for staff, and we have a scheduling that we're under, that we've kind of since the beginning of when we've allowed staff to use the building for their workplace. People have to be scheduled in. We make sure that those staff are spread out. If they're not at their desk, wearing masks and all the protocols for hand sanitizing and doing a health screening before they even enter the building. So lots of requirements, but there's some staff that feel that they get much more accomplished here, or they just don't have adequate internet to be doing their jobs remotely. So it's all in likelihood that this will kind of continue for the next several months. We're kind of ensuring, seeing what this Delta variant does and what those numbers mean in our areas. We'll continue to have no public access to the building at this time. Certainly we have standard operating procedures for conducting field visits in the outdoors, being able to be separate. Those things are much less risk. As well, I would anticipate that board meetings will continue in the same format as well for the interim. So those are kind of the updates I have regarding the COVID-19. Continue to send out newsletters to staff as well. And Michelle's been great for passing that information along to you as members to keep you up to date on new information with COVID. I think that's the consistent, is that it's consistently changing, and we need to stay on top of all this information and change our policies and our processes as we move through the pandemic. So, thank you for that.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Does anybody have any questions at all or any comments on that issue 9.1? Okay, if not, we'll move on to 9.2, which is Proposed Conservation Authorities Act update. And as Tracy and I have already mentioned, not a lot's happened yet. We're still waiting. We had a Conservation Ontario board meeting yesterday, and we were commenting earlier how it was a pretty short meeting because, again, we're waiting. We're waiting to see how the regulations are going to unfold. The general manager and the chair of Conservation Ontario have met with the new minister, and we're quick to get in there and speak with him and put in some requests and raise some issues. We're still waiting to see what happens as a result of that. They've also been busy meeting with some of the party leaders. I know they've met with the leader of the Green Party, and they're looking to meet with the Premier as well, and the other party leaders. So there's a lot of work still being done and lobbying taking place, but until these regulations are announced, we're just waiting. I don't know. Tracy, if you want to add some more comments to that.
Sure, I will. Thank you. I would just emphasize that the working group members have continued to be meeting on phase 2 of the regulations. That includes the Section 28 regulation as well as the levy regulation that are also to come out this fall. And we've been advised by working group members that the delays in phase 1, there's just a few things left to be concluded and to be ironed out. But again, look at that as a positive. They've taken the time to kind of address some of the issues. We didn't have an opportunity to provide much input into the act, into the changes to the Conservation Authorities Act, because it was through a public or a budget bill, sorry. And so the public consultation just wasn't there. So now they're dealing with an act and trying to get regulations that align with an act that may not have been quite right. And that's my opinion. But certainly having the time spent on the regulations is really the goal, is trying to have something that's able to be implemented. And so the working group members, we've got to thank them for all of their time and their continuation of efforts as they've continued through this. I keep paying attention to Friday afternoon announcements from the minister's office to see if something's coming out, but we haven't seen that yet. I was thinking it was going to be the last weekend in August in the summer, a beautiful day, but certainly didn't happen then, and we'll continue to wait. But I'll make sure I pass it on to board members as soon as we receive it. That's
okay.
all.
Thanks, Tracy. Anybody have any questions or comments then on 9.2? Okay. Just a couple more items I have then for my comments. First of all, I'm sure you'll all recall the significant storm and rain event that we had last week. Few days there of rain. Some areas of the watershed received over 4 inches. So pretty significant rainfall event. And I'd certainly like to take this opportunity to commend staff for all of their efforts. Tracy and I we exchanged a couple of emails, and I was asking how things were going, and she said, well, they're busy. We've got staff that were busy. They were monitoring rainfall. They were out monitoring stream gauges. Of course, they were monitoring the dam discharge. We had people out in the field that were taking high water mark surveys. We even had staff that had to relocate trailers over at Fanshawe Park. We've got staff in the office. We've got communication because we're trying to relay information between staff in the field and staff that are are working at the flood control centers. We've also got to get communications out to our member municipalities and our flood coordinators. So there's a lot of work being done there and just getting the word out and passing on the latest information. We had people that were working in shifts, working through the night. And because of their hard work and efforts, that allowed the rest of us to sleep soundly and not be unduly worried. So I'd really like to thank staff. I've often said before that in my time at the Grand is a managed river system with some large flood control structures. And Upper Thames is also the same. There's a lot of CAs that don't have those types of flood control structures, but these two CAs do. And having those flood control structures, there's a lot of times where people look at them and think they're kind of white elephants. They're kind of useless. Believe me, they're not. And it's times like this when they go from being useless or perceived as being useless to becoming priceless. And thank goodness we've got them there, and we've got people there that know how to operate them. And it's vitally important. Of course, we need them in the summertime for flow augmentation, but there's times like this when we need them to hold back and impound that water. So we all saw media reports. We saw roads that were being closed, especially in Middlesex County. A lot of flooding. But we're very fortunate to have the managed river system that we do have now and the hardworking and competent staff to operate it. I don't know, Tracy, if you want to add anything to that at all, or?
No, I thank you very much. I certainly appreciate your remarks, and I'm sure staff will as well, because yes, it is at times because it's managed so well, people forget the importance of it. You know, often we've said because we haven't experienced those massive flood events, because we've been managing our systems, people don't realize that it could be a problem because it's done so well. So thank you, Chair, for making those remarks. I'm sure staff will appreciate it, as I said.
Well, yeah, thank you. And yeah, certainly, you know, I know some staff are in on the meeting, but please convey our thanks to the staff, because it's and it's the first time we've had to do this really with COVID, which has presented some challenges and some doing things a little bit differently. So it's, I know when you have a flood event, you've got to, you have to practice it because you might not have done it for a while, but then when you suddenly go to do it and say, well, now we also have to do it differently because what we did before doesn't quite apply because of COVID restrictions. So it's a challenge, but staff certainly rose to the challenge. Jim, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo your comments and acknowledgement, and thank Tracy and staff for their diligence during this very wet and situation. I think you know, Tracy mentioned that sometimes the public forgets about the good work that we do because until something happens that's negative, then it sort of becomes a problem. And I'm thinking that for next month's FYI, it would be good to have a selection of all the various critical actions that were taken by staff and the organization during this time, to profile a lot of that to help promote some of this work.
Okay, yep, that's great. Good suggestion. Thanks, Jim.
Yes, thank you, Jim. If I can, through the chair, yeah,
Yep.
Again, it's such a coordinated effort from, as was mentioned, the moving of the trailers, our parks, and many of our parks staff are also the ones out doing those operations on the dam and opening up the gates or closing the gates as needed. Teresa and her staff are always there to communicate information, from safety bulletins to communications with the flood coordinators to making sure everything behind the scenes is happening, and even taking calls from, you know, the staff at the Waltzing Weasel who are concerned about water levels down at Windermere and Adelaide. And then, of course, Chris Tasker and his staff, the Marks, Mark Helston, Mark Shiflett, specifically, they're the ones tagging in and out throughout the night to be monitoring those discharges and the dam operations and coordinating efforts throughout the watershed to make sure additional monitoring is undertaken. So,
well, I think these are the kinds of things that people need to know about and to remember that all of the extent of the work that we do during these trying times.
Yep. Very good. Very good. Okay, so having said that, the rain has stopped and we're looking at a few days now of some nice sunny weather. And I'd like to take this opportunity to encourage board members. We're heading into October and the leaves start to change color. Beautiful time of year to get out and enjoy the parks, enjoy the natural spaces. We've mentioned that a couple times today about the fact that our parks have been so well used during COVID. A lot of people wanting to get outdoors, especially now, again, winter's coming. So take the opportunity to get outdoors, enjoy the fall colors. And we'll see when the regulations come out. There's been a request put in that some of this passive recreation be included. We'll see how the minister treats that, but nonetheless, good time of year to get out and enjoy all that the parks have to offer. Tony, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question to staff. Speaking of high water and flooding, I guess, I just wondered if there has been any follow-up communications with the town of St. Mary's or the golf course on the previous instruction or direction or advice we got from the ministry with regards to consultation and follow-up. Thanks.
Okay. Anything happened there at all, Tracy?
Sure, I can just give an update that Brent Kitmert from the town of St. Mary's and I have exchanged a couple emails. And then, of course, through this flood event, our staff were in touch with golf course representatives to inform about actions being taken and even for discharge later this week, how the course is doing and get some feedback from them. So we know the duration for and how much will be released and discharged from the dams over this next period. Luckily, we've got some dry weather in the forecast, as was mentioned, but there's just been a couple emails at this point. Luckily, Chris Tasker had a few weeks off on vacation early in September, so we haven't done a whole lot more of setting up a meeting until we've got this flood event behind us.
Appreciate that. That'll be a follow-up question on regular board meetings, I can assure you. Thanks.
Okay.
No problem.
Good, thank you. All right. So that's it for my comments. Tracy, do you have anything else at all for comments?
No, I think that covers it through the two items that I'd already mentioned. Yeah, I think we're going to have a fairly full agenda next month. There was a few things that, again, because of the flood event happening, I know there was a report that Chris Tasker was considering, but other priorities took a precedent in this case. But like I say, I think hopefully we'll have some updates on regulation by then too.
Okay, thank you. Next item is number 10, closed session. We have nothing today for closed session. Takes us down to item number 11, which is adjournment. And just before we adjourn, just to repeat what Tracy said, we've had a short meeting today, but looks like the November agenda will be a bit longer, a bit more to discuss. Depending on how soon we hear from the province on these new regulations and what time frame they give us, we may have to have a December meeting as well. We'll keep you posted on that, but we don't know for certain at this point. And just a reminder for members of the Audit and Finance Committee that we have a meeting afterwards. I've got just after 10:30, so I'm thinking that maybe the Finance and Audit Committee can start to meet in 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how our how our, I know we've got to line up some delegation there, if we can schedule them in, but we'll see. But having said all that, we are ready for adjournment. So can I get Paul to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, folks. Audit and Finance Committee members, please stick around. The rest of you, enjoy the beautiful day.
I know.
Bye.
Bye.